Hello everybody, welcome to Lost.in.prose where we talk about all things bookish. In today's video, I'm going to take you through my classics collection. But before that, let me give you a small reading update of my current read, The Flip Side, which is by James Bailey. Now it's New Year's Eve and Josh has a high flying personal proposal planned. It is an exclusive pod on the London Eye and it's perfect until she says no. He managed to lose his girlfriend, his job, and his flat in just 5 minutes. Realizing that he can't trust his own judgment, he puts his faith and fate in a coin and takes every choice by flipping a coin. It's a super fun book to read. I hope you enjoy. Now let's begin with the actual video, which is my classics collection. These are my classics, and I do not read many classics, although I own a lot of them, but I have a hard time reading them because I think the language used is a little too difficult to grasp. So let's begin. First up, we have this beautiful Jane Austen set by Fingerprint Publishing. Now, Fingerprint Publishing, this is not sponsored. Fingerprint Publishing is a great publishing house for classics and it isn't expensive at all. So, this set of books has Emma by Jane Austen, which I've heard is also the book on which the movie Clueless was based, and also an Indian film, something like Aisha or something, was based on this book. And I'm really intrigued to read it because I've watched both those movies. Next up is Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. Now, I haven't read this either. I love the covers of all these books in this set. And next up is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Now, I have read half of Pride and Prejudice. I haven't read it entirely, but I have watched the movie and let me say I really enjoyed it. I've heard reviews saying that Pride and Prejudice is just a bunch of people going to other people's houses, and that really isn't wrong entirely. Next up is the beautiful cover of Persuasion by Jane Austen, and lastly is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. Northanger Abbey is not in this set, and I will have to purchase that separately. Look at how stunning the cover is. All of them kept together looks just so pretty. Now, Jane Austen's writing style is extremely difficult to grasp, and that is why I've watched movies on based on her books rather than reading the books actually. That is so unlikely of me to do, but I mean, it's just I get a gist of the book, if not exactly what the book offers, but I know the plot line because it is really difficult to read her writing style because her sentences are extremely long and the language she uses is definitely a little difficult. Now, next up, we have three books that I wasn't sure are classics or not. First up is the Belja. Now, these books on the internet are classics, but I wasn't very sure because a few said they were, a few said they weren't. So I thought let me just include them. First up is The Belja by Sylvia Plath. I haven't read this book yet because I know it contains a lot of strong themes. Next up is A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, again a Fingerprint Publishing. And I think I will pick this up soon because it doesn't have many pages, only I think it has around 120 pages and it seems pretty simple to read. I don't know why I haven't read it yet. It seems pretty interesting too because of the description behind. So I think I'll read this book soon. Next up is A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. Now, this is a play, and look at how pretty the cover is. Another Fingerprint Publishing, but this is not sponsored. Now, A Doll's House is an easy to read play. It speaks about many topics, and I love the female character development in this book. It's an easy and quick to read book. This book was about Nora's dilemma. Nora, who's a dutiful wife, she borrowed money from Krogstad, a man of ill repute, and the money actually helped her saved her husband's life, but he has no idea about what she did. So it really is pretty interesting. Do check it out. Next up is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Now, I haven't read this book yet, but I absolutely love the cover and the memes that this book has all over the internet. Now, look at this cover. It's actually a paperback, but it is a very sturdy kind of a paperback, and also it opens like the flaps, it opens like this. Yes, it actually is a pretty beautiful cover. Now, this is not by Fingerprint Publishing, this is by Penguin, and there's also a silhouette of a man on the back of the cover. It is a pretty nice cover, and I think I should read this pretty soon. Next up is Jane Eyre. Now, this book is so intimidating. It has been on my TBR for so long, but I just couldn't get myself to read this book. It is a floppy paperback kind of a book, but I mean, it is super, super intimidating. I don't think I can read it as of now, at least. Um, Maybe I'll read it soon, but let me know if you read this book, and also give me tips on how to make classics easier to read. If you have any tips, leave them down in the comments below. Maybe we'll make a new video in which I'll compile all these tips. Next up is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, which is a classic that I've actually read. Now, this book also has more parts like Little Men, Good Wives, etc. Now, I like this book. It was pretty simple, it was pretty easy to read. So, if you want to start with a classic, I think this is the classic to start with. Its size may be a little intimidating, but it's a good read. I've also watched the movie in which all of it is just pretty much all the parts, all the books have been compiled pretty well. So I like the movie as well. Now, this vintage edition classic also has like a glossary behind, a quiz behind to find out which March sister you are more likely to be, a glossary, and like the entire backstory of Little Women. So I like that about this edition. It is pretty, it's just pretty. Next up is Animal Farm by George Orwell. I nearly forgot that I have this book. Now, this is supposedly easy to read, but I haven't read it yet. And I know that this is a satire on the Russian Revolution and in this animal stock. I only know literally this much. Next up is Wuthering Heights. I picked this book up, but the language was a little hard to grasp, so I did not have the determination to move further into the book. Now, if you've read this, let me know. And this is also a beautiful fingerprint classic edition. I haven't read this yet. Let me know if you've read it, and let me know your tips to make classics easier to read. I will definitely add your comments into my video, and we'll make a new video on how to make it easy to read classics. Next up is The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank, which is a heartbreaking book of a 13-year-old girl, and these are her diary entries. And it gives us an insight into the horrific Holocaust period and how children had to forcefully live in that. Next up is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This cover is also pretty stunning. I like the cover of this as well, and it has a bright yellow contrasting to the front black and gray colored cover. Now, I haven't read this as well. I think most of my TBR, physical TBR, consists of classics because they're hard to read. Next up is The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint Exupéry. I am sorry if I don't pronounce that right. Now, I have read this. It was a book that I read in May, and I actually enjoyed the book. It is pretty philosophical, so if you're into that kind of genre of reading, I think you'll enjoy it really well. The cover is absolutely stunning, and also this I have reviewed on my Instagram channel. I'll also post on my community tab. If you haven't checked out my Instagram, please do. Next up is The Secret Garden. I think it's the final book. The Secret Garden, I haven't read it yet, and I had bought it way back in time. Look at these pretty illustrations at the start of every chapter. I am kind of intrigued on reading it once I've started flipping through all these books. I think I am more drawn towards reading them now. So I may actually read one or two classics this year. I'll make sure I do. Let me know in the comments below tips to make it easier. If you have any little silly tips that you use, any tip would be considered really nice. So let me know down below. Well, this was my classics collection. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more. Bye, like, share, and subscribe.